All right, let's see who shows up. If anybody shows up. Do. As you come in, if you're here, say hello. Say hello. Say hello. Nobody's here. Good morning. Good morning. Good mornings to you, YouTube. Oh my gosh, I never live streamed this early and it seems like nobody is around. I'm celebrating all alone. For people who watch the replay later, this is going to be totally weird. This is why you should schedule live streams so that you're just not all alone. All alone. This is why you should schedule live streams so that you're just not all alone. All alone. Okay, cool. We got some people. Hello, hello. Hi, everybody. I'm at Hotel Walmart, everybody. Where are you guys at? It's not really Hotel Walmart. I didn't sleep here. I just had to grab something from the store. So I popped on into the parking lot. And I also wanted to do a live stream this morning. So all right. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you to everybody who subscribed to the channel. I reached 8K subs a little while ago, but the world was in a really complicated place at that point. And so I felt really weird about doing a celebratory video at that point. So I delayed it a little bit and I wasn't sure how I wanted to handle it. And you know what? I was like, I'm just going to live stream this morning and just say thank you to everybody, hang out for a little bit. I'm basically here to hang out. I'm here to answer questions. I'm here to talk to you guys. So anything you want to say to me, I can, try to keep up with the chat and reply to that for a little bit. And yeah, I have no other plans. And I've said the big thing, which is thank you. Thank you guys for being a part of the channel, being interested in my journey and tracking along with me for however long you've been with me. So yeah. Okay, let me see. Ooh, we actually got a question coming in. So I have I had a question. I lost it. There was a question. Good morning to everybody who said good morning. Okay, so this is a question. Tell us how you grew your subs. I wish I could have had like some blueprint for how it happened, but really, honestly, my fastest growth has been when I've been consistent in content, and that's just the truth. People need a reason to keep coming back. And so we can get caught up in like putting out like one video and just waiting for that one video to succeed. My early videos, when I look at them, I'm like so ashamed. I'm so ashamed. By the way, I love this thing. I got me a glove, and that way you get to keep all your fingers. But anyway, my early videos, I'm so ashamed, but they were sort of a learning experience. And I think the biggest thing is just consistency and being positive. Like asking people to come back is nice, but they also need to want a reason to come back. And so hopefully I've successfully tried to continue to improve in my skill set to the point that people have been subscribing, and I want to keep improving and keep really focusing on growing the channel. My goal is to get to 10K before the end of 2020, and so I'm going to more actively push for that, and hopefully it happens. Questions. This is a good question. It's like, did you like Oregon enough to maybe move there one day? I liked Oregon a lot. I actually miss Oregon. I am shocked how much I miss Oregon. Thank you. It was really a beautiful place. Now, mind you, I only saw a very little part of it. I only saw Ashland, some parts of Medford, and sort of around that zone. But I would love to go back to Oregon and explore it more. I don't know if there's anywhere I want to live permanently. Like, there's so much of the world I have not seen. I was born in Maryland. I was in Maryland for like 30 plus years, and then I flew across the country, didn't see anything in the middle. And then I've been in California the last few years, and I've basically been up and down the West Coast, but I haven't seen anything in the middle. So I don't feel like there's anywhere I want to be forever, because I haven't seen enough of the United States to be like, oh, this feels like a place I would love to settle forever. I just haven't seen enough of it. I've spent so much of my life due to monetary and life limitations in one place. I loved Oregon. I would love to go back to Oregon. You know, I now have people I know in Oregon, so I have a reason to go back to Oregon, but not like I want it forever. Ruby, thank you for the super chat. Thank you so much. Let me look. Let's see here. Congrats. Question: what kind of tea do you drink? Do you flavor it? I usually, honestly, most of what I mostly have in my van is, this is my tea container. I have English breakfast, which is my favorite wake up tea. It's been so hot I haven't been drinking tea though, unless I make iced tea. And then I basically have green tea with how do you pronounce that? Matcha? I don't know how you pronounce it. But anyway, that's what I have right now. I do drink a lot of black and green. When I go out to like tea places, I tend to experiment and just see what they have. One of the reasons I like tea over coffee is I don't feel the need to put extra stuff in it. And so that makes tea a much more healthier sort of thing for me. Cool. Lori says, I'm new to your channel. I'm doing research because I might be a nomad later on. I'm looking for a minivan. Coolio. I would advise that you get a mini camper. If you can rent one, rent a mini camper, because I'm going to be honest. Yes, minivans are a cheap buy-in to be able to have a camper. But I would say rent a mini camper, because it is quite an adjustment to live full-time in something small. And I'm not saying you can't do it. I've done it for like going on 2 years now, but I would say rent a mini camper. Don't just go, okay, minivans are cheap, so I'm going to get a minivan. For some people, it literally drives them crazy, and they can maybe weekend in a mini camper, but for whatever style of like sort of life you're looking to do, try to get a vehicle that size and see how limited you feel by it. Now, mind you, some people are very adjustable, and so they can make anything work, but other people aren't, you know, so they realize like it's really hard living out of a mini camper full time all the time. And it's different to have a mini camper in a house that you're going to go back to. And so you have that timed in relief, and then living full time in a mini camper. So anybody who's thinking about a mini camper, people always say, get a minivan. They're super cheap. And they are right. They're super cheap. They're easy to get. They're the easiest buy-in into van life, but some people can't do it, and it's okay to be that person. So that's all I advise, is like spend some time in a mini camper. If you can overnight in it somehow, just do that. This is a question. Do you do theater full time, or do you do other things? That is a complicated question, because before COVID, yes. Was that always my intention? Yes. But the fact is, it's contract to contract work. And there were times I spent more hours not doing theater than I did doing theater. But the goal was always to be a full-time freelance stage manager. There was never a point where I had like a day job that in my brain was my full-time day job and I was doing theater on the side. That was never the actual like space I was living in. The space I was living in is like, if I have to do something else, I will do it. But the intent is to make theater full-time. Contract to contract full time, but what I was doing most of the time. And for most of 2020, that actually ended up being the case, but that hasn't consistently been the case since I graduated college. To answer your question, I've also been employed. I used to work for a university as an assistant production manager. I've been a production manager for a small company. So the answer is yes and no in a legal sense. Or in hours worked. There are points in my life where the amount of hours I was working was mostly non-theater, and that was to eat and survive and get by. But the intent was always to have a full-time career in theater. But there was never a point where I was, except for the short spurts where I was in production management, there was never a point where I was full-time employed by a theatrical company. But there were times when I was doing theater full time, if that makes any sense. It's really hard to explain to people who've lived in a like traditional job world because it's just a little bit different. Western Oregon is much different from Eastern Oregon. Northern Oregon is also probably different from Southern Oregon. And I was pretty much just in the Southern area. Like people kept bringing up Portland and I was like, Portland's far away. Like I'm nowhere near Portland. If you would like to move somewhere sometime, come to Canada. Generally, it's good up here. I intend to travel Canada. Like right now, obviously, border crossing is complicated, but I intend to travel Canada. I have always loved Canada. There was one point where I was trying to get into the University of British Columbia. Like that's how obsessed with Canada I've been for years. And this people think, oh, it's because of Van City Vanlife, and I am a Chrome fan. Everybody knows I'm a Chrome fan, but I've been obsessed with Canada probably since I was considering going back to college because I really wanted to get into the University of British Columbia and use that as a transition point to become Canadian. Like that's how excited I was about Canada. I've investigated becoming Canadian. I love Canada. I intend to travel Canada at some point. The alternative to a super chat is a PayPal donation. And in the description of my video, there is obviously anything that comes through YouTube. Yes, they get a cut. I would have to investigate the percentage of that cut. I just kind of deal with it, like whatever comes through. But if you click on my PayPal link in the description of the video, that is probably the fastest, most direct way to donate to me. The thing about anything that comes in the mail is I don't always have access to my mailbox, so that can get really delayed. And it's also the mail. I mean, honestly, stuff can get lost. PayPal is probably the most direct means. PayPal also takes a cut, but it's fairly tiny. And it's also the quickest way that sort of donations come in when they come in for the channel. So yeah. Chrome Valdez. Well, I am honored if he does. I do know he showed my business card on one of his videos, which felt really, really great. Hi, Justin and Christina. RV Vanlife. Princess Pamela and I are on the same wavelength. I would love to live forever in Canada. I would still visit the US, but if there was like if I had a clear path to becoming Canadian, like you couldn't stop me. And like I said, it's been for years. I know some people like bring it up depending on if the person who's the president is somebody they like or not. And this, goes way back into long history. Everybody says they're moving to Canada in reaction to whoever the US president is and if that person lines up with their politics or not. But I have been obsessed with Canada, honestly, probably since like high school. I'd become Canadian in a second if I could. Even though I do want to travel the US, because like I said, there's so little of it that I've seen. And when I moved to California, I came here on a plane. So I literally flew over the entire United States. I had a layover in Texas for like maybe like 20 minutes. It was a really quick layover where, you know, I switched planes. And guys, that was my first flight. I'd never been on a plane. So for 30 plus years, I've never been on a plane. And then when I came to California almost 3 years ago now, like that was my first time on a plane. So I've really not traveled. I've not seen that much. And it's mostly been a limitation of money and access. And so like now that I have this opportunity where like I'm sort of free from all of the conventional things that usually stop us from traveling, I really want to take advantage of it. One of the things I had to come back to California for was I got approved for Medi-Cal, which allows me to do some medical insurance. Another thing is my glasses are busted. I don't know. Where's the camera on this thing? I don't know how well you guys can see it, but there's super glue on this lens. There it is. There's super glue literally holding the lens onto my frame. And so I had to make an eye appointment. I needed an updated prescription anyway. And I needed to get some new glasses, so I took care of that. And there's just a couple of little things that need to be taken care of in what is legally my whole home state. So that was another reason I just kind of needed to get out of Oregon, get back to California, and sort of get myself organized. But I would love to do some exploring. Like, California's huge, so you can explore a lot, and your world can change a lot from, you know, area to area, county to county, northern, southern, middle. Like there's so much going on in California, but it's still only like the second state in the entire United States where I've spent an extended amount of time. So I'd love to do some more traveling. Even though the world is complicated, sort of while it's available to me, and while, you know, I kind of have enough money to survive doing it. I'm not going to say I'm going to thrive. I don't have like, you know, 6 months of money put away to travel, but like I live in a van, and once all the stuff that's sort of tying me to Berkeley, like my to-do list is done, and there's also some people I want to see, because like California has been my base for like going on 3 years now. So there are people here that I wanted to see, friends that I missed, not just Emily. I saw my friend Kiara the other day, and we're also going to hang out next week. And I have a couple of more friends I want to connect with. But after that, I'm like, what opportunities are open to me in the space that I'm in now? Because I'm finding being back in Berkeley really blah. Everybody associates me with San Francisco, but honestly, I'm in San Francisco very rarely. Berkeley is actually my base, and it's more my base than anywhere else. So yeah, I don't know. That was just a ramble. Do you cook 3 meals times per day, or just once a day, or just wing it each day? I wing it each day. Since I've been focusing sort of on my health routine, I've been doing protein shakes in the morning, which require no cooking. And it's been so hot, I haven't wanted to turn on the camp stove, because the camp stove basically turns the inside of the van into an oven, which is great in the winter and horrible when the weather is warm. And so I've been trying to do foods that don't require me actually cooking. I've been doing a lot of those bagged salads. I've been doing sandwiches. I've been doing stuff that's very grab and go. I've been casually eating a lot of fruits and vegetables where I don't have to cook them. Like I can just eat them as they are. And then like in the winter months, it's like, then I might feel more bold about making stuff. But also, as you know, with my van, it's very tiny. And so to cook, I don't already have a cooking station set up. For people who've seen any of my tour videos, you know I have to pull out a table. I have to pull my stove from behind the bed. I have to set up the stove on the bed. I have to make sure I'm somewhere where I can open my windows. And then I can proceed to try to make a meal. And so it just takes a lot of steps. And on top of that, the van being really hot is really discouraging me from cooking right now, so much as like trying to think of foods that don't require me to cook. And also like in my weight loss journey, in those videos, I get a lot of replies and suggestions about things that I should do, but I don't think what a lot of those people are considering is that I live in a minivan. I have a chest fridge and a camp stove, and I sort of have to live under those limitations. So the question is, how can I stay healthy under those limitations? And that includes not being overheated in the van as well, and not being, and temperature controlling my environment, and what is reasonable to the amount of resources that I have and how complicated it is. But I basically wing it and change it based on the weather and the situation. If it's really late at night, probably it's not a good idea for me to crack a bunch of windows and set up a camp table inside of the van. But I could go during the middle of the day, or if the sun's still up, it's very easy to go to a park and do that. And if I'm bold enough to go to a park, I could probably even cook outside the van. I don't tend to unless I'm in a legit campsite, but that's a big ramble to say I definitely wing it. There is no consistency. I might consistently do something based on the weather and the situation. Like right now, I said I do the protein shakes in the morning. I'm doing sandwiches or salads for lunch, and there's a huge question mark over dinner sometimes. So right now I'm winging it. I'm probably winging it more than I did than when I had an apartment back in Oregon. Yeah. That was a long answer. Sorry. Let me see. Are you in New Jersey? No, I'm in Berkeley area, California. Well, right now I'm not in Berkeley because I'm going to see a friend of mine for a hike. So I'm more in I don't know where I am. I'm right outside of Sacramento, California ish. I'm not in Sacramento, but I'm near that area. I can't remember the name of it. I was at the Dunnigan rest stop last night. So if you look up Dunnigan, California, I haven't been on the East Coast in 3 years. I haven't been able to afford to go back to the East Coast in 3 years. Since I moved out here, I just haven't had the money or time to go back. When I had the money, I didn't have the time. When I had the time, I didn't have the money. And that's just the way it's worked out. So I haven't been near the East Coast since I moved to the West Coast. Do you feel any different with so much going on in the world right now? Not really. To be quite honest, I also got back into the van at the point where the world was starting to transition and be more public. I will say it was interesting when I entered California. It didn't really feel that different. I was still in a rural area. I was in the Shasta Valley originally. They were super cash about masks. I was probably more cautious about wearing masks and following social distancing. They did not give a crap. People were just kind of out. I will say, as I got into Berkeley and Oakland and Emeryville, in areas that are more city and more concentrated, and more neighboring to San Francisco, there were signs that were don't come in the store without a mask on. It wasn't that serious, but there were literal signs that said you are not allowed in without a mask, where it was sometimes we suggest a mask. You definitely see social distancing signs, but definitely when I was in Ashland and Medford, Oregon, and when I was in the Shasta Valley in California, it was a very casual of, we know this is going on, but just social distance, please. We don't care. And in Berkeley, it was very different. I forgot my mask. I just wasn't thinking. And so I parked at a 7-Eleven and I was about to go in. And I got to the door and I saw the sign and I had to run back to my van because I just forgot. And I grabbed my mask and I put it on, and then I went into the 7-Eleven. Now, mind you, I've still seen people get into these stores without a mask, but I feel it's much more serious in these concentrated areas. But because I live in a van, if I'm really just I'm sick of these concentrated areas, I just go drive away from it. And it honestly hasn't been that bad. I thought it was going to be way worse than it actually is. And because the weather's getting nicer, people are there's too many people in the parks. I went to the park the other day to do my exercise routine, and I was why are there people everywhere? And there are people with kids letting their kids play with each other, and nobody had on a freaking mask. So yeah, it hasn't really been it's been almost pretty much the same. It's been normal. I hate to say, except for being aware of having masks go in hand and trying not to forget my mask when I go in stores. It hasn't been that bad. I think size of vehicle depends on size, mainly height of the van dweller. I'm 5 foot and my Honda Odyssey fits me well. And I just don't know if that's true, because I've seen tiny people who are like, I can't live without a full or queen size bed. Like, whereas I have been on something smaller than a twin bed, like, the entire time. You know, I've seen tall people in small vehicles and small vehicles and tall vehicles. I think it's really more about your mentality. I think a mentality is way more important than the numbers. Like, somebody who's also like used to like roughing it may have a different perspective from somebody who's coming from never having roughed it in their life. And so it's much too much of extreme change to go that small with that little amenities. And so they may eventually get there, but they just don't have the mental capacity to make that huge of an adjustment. And I think it's more about sort of what are your make or break comforts more than how tall, short, heavy. Because people look at me and they're like, man, I'm as big as you and I couldn't XYZ LMNOP. And I hear that all the time. And then I also see people who are smaller than me, both in height and weight, who could not conceive of living full time in a minivan. So I think it's less about your body composition and more about just like your mental ability to lose a lot of amenities. And even in a nice mini camper, you sort of sacrifice some of the amenities, even more so than just standing up. I mean, there's things you can never have inside of a mini camper that you can possibly fit into a larger camper. And it's just like it's a smaller space in a lot of ways that takes some adjustment that some people just can't adjust to. So yeah, that's my spiel on it. What's up, Nova Scotia? Just wanted to say what's up. I missed the Berkeley Bowl. I'll be back soon for work, if allowed to work, and I'm going to the bowl. Berkeley Bowl is great, but sometimes it got so crowded, I would get to the parking lot and be like, I don't know if I want to go in there. For people not familiar with Berkeley, it's basically a really, really good, like, kind of Whole Foods grocery store, but not like Whole Foods, like actual. I'm not talking Whole Foods, the brand. I'm talking about actual Whole Foods. It's a really good place to get healthy food, sort of at a reasonable price. Berkeley Bowl is great. What's this right here? Thanks, Dawn, for your good answer. If you do decide and are able to make it up to Canada, I hope you will hold a Vanlife meetup. I'd be very pleased to travel where you are to attend. That is awesome to know. I'm just so happy so many people from Canada are like in my thread right now. Oh, what time is it? Oh wow, I got some super chats down here. Give me a second. I'm a little slow. I'm catching up with everything. Oh, give me a second. Thank you, Wilderness River, for River. Oh God, I can't even pronounce it, for the $10 super chat. That means so much to me. Wilderness River, I feel you, man. I had one day, I bought a new fan. I actually really like it. It's going a little bit right now, but it's not that hot right now. I'm also a little bit further up. But I love this little fan. It's really fun. It's not as nice as like some fans, but it's a nice little clip fan. But it was like 97 degrees and it was doing nothing. I was just hot in here, and I just had this like directly on me, because you can clip it, but it has a nice little base, so if I can sit it down too. And I just had it sitting on the table in front of me, and it was like, and I was still baking. And sometimes the best thing to do, honestly, is get out the van, because it's cooler outside the van than it is in the van. So yeah, I feel you, man. It got so hot one day, I was like, Kathleen Klein says hot food sandwiches and soups are easy. Wrap the sandwich in foil and put it on the windshield in the sun. I'm not patient enough for that. And also, like, a lot of times I'm not in a still enough place where that is a possibility. And honestly, I don't want the hot food when it's hot. I'd rather eat cold food. Like, I don't even desire. That's why I'm not drinking a lot of tea right now, because I love tea, but it is too hot to add a hot drink to my life. So I haven't even really wanted hot sandwiches or soups. And also, like, that just takes a while, and I either don't have the stillness for that, whereas, like, I'm in a place where I need to move and be on the move, or, like, you know, if I'm parked in the middle of Berkeley, I mean, I could put something on my windshield, but it'd be a little more difficult to pull off. Try to protect your location, especially on live. Stay safe. Yeah, I mean, like, I haven't said exactly where I am. It'd be pretty hard to find me. And it's not like I'm going to be, like, if I'm ever in a permanent camp spot for an extended amount of time, I would never give out that exact address, ever. Except directly to people I knew I wanted to communicate with and find me. But I will often give the general zone, and every time I post a video, I'm probably no longer where that video happened. Like, I have never really posted a video and still been in that spot. I've always moved on by the time anybody sees that video. So even if they go, oh, this is the general area she's in, like, I mean, there's certain things unless I'm not going to shoot anything, people can figure stuff out when they want to. Like, you know, if I was like, I'm at Walmart, and I showed the front of the Walmart, and I said generally that I was in some city, probably somebody could figure out which Walmart that was if they were really determined. And to a certain extent, exposing yourself on YouTube, it's access. I mean, there's only so much you can control it. The only thing you can do is not be on YouTube, and I love doing YouTube. I've developed a real passion for, like, storytelling through video. And so, like, unless I completely eliminate YouTube, there's always going to be a little bit of information, but I'm never going to be like, you can find me at 545 this street avenue zip code. Like, I'm never going to do that. Like, that's just dumb. Question, Rick Jan, how are you affording this lifestyle? Stay positive. Jobs. That's how I'm affording the lifestyle. Is jobs. Just plain old working. Right now I am receiving some unemployment. And it's enough to maintain. It's not enough to do well. Like, I am definitely not in the glamorous category. I'm in the surviving month to month category, but it's choice and work. Like, I'm affording it by working. Under my normal circumstances, the reason why I've been so centered in California is where I can go do work. And so I do a contract and I earn some money. And if I have a couple days off or some free time, I might go just do something. And because I live in the van and I have no obligations to an address, that's easy to do. When I lived in an apartment and didn't have a vehicle, I was very tied to that apartment, even when I had free time, because usually I was living month to month with no money. Even in the van, if I'm living month to month with no money, I'm in something with four wheels. And so I can always turn those wheels and go somewhere. Now, I may have to regulate that somewhere by relationship to if I have an obligation to be back to work by a certain day or date. But it's one of those things you just flow with when you come into the lifestyle the way I did. I did not have a savings. I did not have enough, the kind of job that could become an instant digital nomad. Like, some people are really lucky in that, like they're illustrators, or, you know, they already have a career doing video, or, you know, they work online in some other way. And so they can just transition doing that job into something that can move. I was not in that position. And so I just work with it by the limitations I have. And so you can keep trying to make it ideal, or you can just go for the thing you want. And I am the type of person who's like, you know what? I got nothing to lose. I'm just going to go for the thing I want and see what happens. And a lot of it sometimes, and I don't advise this as a smart way to do it, but sometimes at some point you're just jumping off a cliff and hoping you land. And you never know. And I'm not even saying that's the smart way to do it. There's people who've done this lifestyle way smarter. But I will say, like, I've also been consciously trying to pay down my debts by living a lifestyle that costs less money. I mean, I live in a freaking minivan, and using as much money as I can to get me in a place that's less in debt. Because, you know, I'm almost there, but I started this lifestyle, you know, indebted to 4 credit cards, and now I'm indebted to 2. And if I'm lucky, I can pay one of those off within the next couple of months. So yeah, I pay for it by working. As far as the question about budget, I think budgeting in van life is just like budgeting anywhere else. What's much more important is, why are you doing van life? For some people, they want to travel. For some people, they want to get out of debt. For some people, they want to save more money. And sometimes these things mix. Sometimes, like, you know, I want to get out of debt, but I also want to travel, and I also want to do, you know, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. But the thing is, you have to know what your main goal is. So if your main goal is to get out of debt, but you also want to travel, but the main goal is getting out of debt, you need to focus on how this lifestyle cheapens your cost of living, but you may not be able to prioritize the travel part of it. And I know that's the part that gets glorified on YouTube, is like, move into a van and travel. Well, the van needs gas. The van needs insurance. Like, even a minivan, even if you're living out your freaking car, you're still going to need gas. You're still going to need insurance. And those are 2 base bills that you know are going to be needs taken care of every month. So you need to ask yourself how often and how fast you're planning on moving, and then you need to do some math on that. Then of the base cost of the vehicle, like if you still have payments or not, plus like gas. I mean, you need to figure out in some way, guesstimate, you know, how much gas is going to take for you to fulfill your minimum needs. If you're just living out your van in the city for a cheaper cost, and your gas needs is get to work, get to where you're going to sleep, get to work, get to where you're going to sleep, that's much different than, I'm going to work for a certain amount of time, put away a certain amount of savings, and travel for a year, you know, and leave my job to do that, and then return to normal life, which some people decide to do. Like, that's a different goal. So in order to really set your budget, it depends on what your priority in van life is. Like, some people, it's not that they need to get out of debt, but they're sick of their money going to rent, and they would rather that money go to travel. And so they transition into what is a cheaper and more flexible lifestyle, and let the house go, and they live out of the van, and instead of paying rent, they put that money away. And then, just like regular people with a house, when those windows come up when they can travel, they travel during those windows. So it's like work, bank money while living in the van, not really traveling that much. And then when you get the opportunity to travel, you get to travel a lot with all the money that didn't get to go to rent. But your priority was redirecting your money. It's not so much savings. And as always in any budget you're making, calculate your emergency fund. But everybody in van life does not have the same goal. And so you need to really ask yourself, what are your priorities in what you want out of van life? It's not a default thing where everybody's living the same type of lifestyle. I'm so behind on super chats because I've been like really like exploring these questions. So the most important thing about budgeting for your van life is figuring out what your goal in van life is, 1, and also 2, what are your make or break needs to live out of a van? Because even if financially, it might be financially feasible for you to live out of a minivan, if you're going to be miserable 2 months later, you're going to start seeking ways to get out of that situation, which could just put you in more debt in addition to the money you wasted buying a vehicle that ended up not being for you and not being something that you emotionally could sustain long term. That's not really answering the budgeting question, but I think like there is no blanket way to handle budgeting until you know what your goal is, or at least what your first, second, and third priority goals are. And you can want all three things, but depending on the limitations of your finances, you may not be able to get all three out the gate. You may have to live in your van for a year before you can travel in it, but you're living in the van for a year to reduce your cost of living so you have money to travel a year later. And you just have to be willing to deal with that because you don't have a job that you can just put into a van and take with you on the road. Vanlife with Gina Payne, thank you for the $2 super chat. Trisha R, thank you for the $20 super chat. I really, really appreciate it. Garden Genie, I'm glad you caught me as well. Thank you for reminding people to hit the thumbs up. Happy Camper Kits! What's up? And thank you for the $10 super chat. Thank you for the reminder to hit the thumbs up. Yes, if you just click out of the chat real quick and please give me a thumbs up, that'd be great. Rick Chan, I don't know what this is, so no, I haven't tried it. Kathy, I have assigned moderators, but they didn't know I was going live, and I don't think any of them are in the chat right now. So I think like I will take volunteers for additional moderators. I never know how to get moderators until people just volunteer. Shoot, I'm like, sorry guys. I'm like trying to find. I'm trying to see what else is on here. Vanlife with Garden Genie says, I was thinking I couldn't handle anything smaller than a cargo van, but you make me think a minivan would work. I would just have to figure out how to haul my tools. I would say if you can get a cargo van in a nice condition for your budget, get the best thing you can get for your budget. Always. Like if you want an RV and you already own a pickup truck, the best thing for your budget is usually something that pickup truck can haul. So if it's, don't get a trailer that's like too much for that pickup truck to handle if you already have a pickup truck. That's usually the best path is what's the best I can get for my budget. So if you can get the cargo van, and I say this as a person who successfully like lived in my minivan for a while, I would say go ahead and get it for the extra space. This is my house. I'm proud of it. I'm proud of what I accomplished with it. But a couple of things bother me about minivans. They ride really low. You can get lift kits for them, but whenever I'm on like dirt roads, I'm always worried about the van, just because it rides really low. There's a great advantage in that nobody thinks twice about them in neighborhoods for city life, though. So in that way, it's been a plus. They tend to be really affordable, but sometimes you can find cargo vans really affordable as well. And if you're just like, every cargo van I'm finding is crap, and I can get a really nice, really good minivan that's going to be reliable, go for that. But I would just measure both and take what is the best for your situation and budget at the time and not really restrict yourself. Honestly, when I was looking for this van, I was looking at cargo vans too. And as far as like a mechanical condition and my budget, this just happened to be the thing that worked out best. But if I could have got a cargo van, it was always an option. So I am pro minivan, but I'm also like, don't restrict yourself. And yes, a lot of times you can get minivans cheap, but there are times, honestly, low roof cargo vans, especially like the older ones, obviously not the more modern, newer ones, you can come in at the same cost and you can get a little bit extra. And it's easier if you want to get a high top later. It's easier to get tops for cargo vans than it is for minivans. There are companies that do minivan tops, but they tend to be very specific. Sometimes they can be really expensive for what you're actually getting. And the good thing about a cargo van is if you're like, I really do want to stand up, it's much easier to get tops for cargo vans because they're so generic, and honestly, a lot of them are the exact same thing minus with length. That I would go in that direction if it makes more sense. But if it doesn't, and you're like financially and mechanically, a minivan makes more sense, go for it. Like that's sort of my my logic on the mini versus the cargo. Kathleen Klein says, I drove truck, lived in an 8x8 box trucks for 31 years. I love box truck conversions. I'm literally obsessed with them. I think they're so awesome. Headroom is more important to me than bed size. Exactly. That's what I'm talking about priorities. I think it's really good to be conscious of your most important priorities. And if you're just like, I'm not going to be bent over all the time, like that's a make or break for me. It's okay for it to be a make or break. And there are options. I think people don't think of box trucks as often as they should. And people are like, they're not stealth. I'm like, you see box trucks every day in the city. You just don't pay attention to them. They're literally all over the city. And as long as you don't go park in grandma's yard, you can probably get away with it if you're smart about it. So yeah. Bloop. Cherry Blossom says, how do you get water? I heard of using rainwater. I pay for it. I mean, like I've gotten free water, but mostly like you can get it for like, in California, it's usually around 40 cents a gallon. I've seen it cheaper elsewhere. I think I saw it as low as 25 cents a gallon in Arizona. And especially for drinking water, yeah, you can get free water, but the quality isn't usually the same. I just pay for water, and I don't have a separation. Some people separate their drinking water, like they have Berkeley filters and stuff like that. First of all, I ain't got room for all that. Even though Scott of Static Camper Van, he has a tiny van and he has like a Berkey filter and a different water supply for like washing and cleaning and all that. That's too much for me. I have one water supply and I want to be able to enjoy drinking it. So usually like you can get them at supermarkets like Safeway, Walmart. I don't see it as Target as much. And sometimes just look around. I've seen them in front of 7-Elevens. And it's just that thing where it's like, you pay some amount of cents per gallon and then you pay for it. If I run into free water, then I take it when it's free. Sometimes people offer me water. Like there's been jobs where like they find out I live in a van and I'm like, can I fill up my water jug? And they're like, yes. I think water, like getting water, showers, bathrooms, like all that stuff, you have to be flexible. You can't have like a make or break rule about it. I mean, you can have like limitations, but you don't have too many make or break rules about it. If you need, I have an option for going to the bathroom in my van and then like containing the contents and then dumping the contents when necessary. But obviously, as much as when is available, I'll use public restrooms. And so you just have to be really, really flexible. And same thing with water. If it comes up free, I'll take it free. If it's not, I'm going to go to a Walmart or Whole Foods or whatever and then get the water. Because that's just the easiest way to know you're getting water that's also going to be like nice to drink. Because, all of that's potable water. Happy Camper Kids, I already said thank you. Highlighted you. Cherry Blossom says, how do you think an introvert would fare doing van life, living in space full time? I am an introvert. I think there's different ways of being an introvert, but also like it's my friend Cora, when she was living in her van and she's transitioning back to apartment life, she felt like she was always in the public. Once I'm in my van, I don't feel like I'm in the public anymore. I'm in my van by myself. And if I really want to be away from people, I turn the key and I go someplace isolated. I would think van life is easier for introverts than extroverts. but so many things are emotional. Like I said, I'm in a public parking lot right now. Honestly, somebody could walk past my window and hear me talking and wonder why I'm sitting in the back of my van, like talking to myself, you know. And I do have the window wide enough open. In fact, a guy said, "Hey," as he walked past me, and I just said, "Hey," and like waved to him. So that kind of stuff, I guess, if somebody feels invaded by that, but I don't feel like that's invading sort of my introvertness. If I don't want to deal with people, if I roll up my windows and, put in my window covers, I feel like I'm in a very private space. So it depends on like what you need to feel like you're in that private space. Like I don't necessarily need to be like outside of the city, isolated in the middle of nowhere to feel like I'm getting that time. Because when I'm in my van by myself, and even when people are walking by on the street, like they're in their own world, they're like doing their own thing, which has nothing to do like with me. Give me a second, guys. I talk too much. uh So to answer your question, I mean, it goes back to who you are. Like I also have always liked small spaces. I've always felt comforted by small spaces. So honestly, in that way, like this lifestyle feeds into sort of that comfort. Kathleen Klein, this is a much shorter answer to exactly what I was saying. If I can get it to show, there it is. Yep, and I completely agree. You get to regulate your exposure to people much more, I feel like, in a van than I ever did. Like when I had roommates and I came home and I didn't really want to deal with people, I couldn't avoid the fact that the roommates were in the common areas, and then you felt obligated to at least speak. um and like if they ask about your day and you don't really want to talk about it, but then you feel like you're being rude if you don't like reply to them, like it's a much more complicated situation. Even though eventually you can get to your room and your room is your space, it felt much more invasive to me as an introvert to live with roommates and other people than it ever has in a van. Like even when I'm in public spaces, if I'm just sitting at a picnic table doing my thing and there's like a family like 5 feet away doing their thing, I still feel like I'm in my private introvert space. But some people couldn't deal with that. Some people were like, no, I need to be like, at a table and not know anybody's around for miles. In addition to, you can just regulate your space much easier as an introvert in a van than you can as an introvert in other situations. Hey, Happy Camper Kits, you got a customer. When I have money, I'll look you up, Happy Camper. um, Deborah Starling lives in a tiny house, 400 square feet, but I would still love a van too. It'd be cool to hit the road and meet some van YouTubers. I would say it's always cool to meet other vanners. Um, because like I don't know, it's like meeting other people who like understand your lifestyle without you having to explain it, even when they're not YouTubers, is just great. Like people who like understand and like aren't trying to figure out how you can live that way. Like I kind of felt that with like Emily's parents when I was like visiting her. By the way, that was her dad's driveway that trailer was in. It's not her house. It's not even really her trailer. It's her dad's. But I felt like, they were really trying to comprehend the van as my home. And it wasn't, you could tell in a way it was, they were trying to be accepting and cool, but there was a level where it wasn't clicking for them. And when you're around van people, you just all know, you just all feel it. So yeah, it's great to meet other vanners. Thank you for the congratulations on the 8K. Happy Camper Kids. I'm going to highlight this because I agree. You did gorgeous work, man. Like gorgeous work. I agree. Uh Ooh, that was a good comment. Now I gotta find it. All these things that go so. Oh man. Be America. This one is like, you are so inspiring, but I haven't heard you mention freedom. To me, all the things I'm talking about are freedom. It's the freedom to make this bigger choice. For me, I wanted, to free up myself from the limitations of the amount of money I make. Like, I wasn't going to be able to change the amount of money I was making, at least not instantly, and still pursue the things that I wanted to pursue. Let me retract that. I'm going to retract that statement. I could have changed the amount of money I was making by sacrificing who I internally am. And I actively made a choice to not do that. And so I was like, if these are my choices, I'm going to live in a van, which is cheaper. I'm going to keep myself open to saying yes to opportunities when they come. I'm going to be able to travel when I want to. But it was still about that main goal. Just to go back to what I was saying. So if your main goal is financial freedom, that is freedom. If your main goal is travel freedom, that's a different kind of freedom. So I think freedom, my thing is I'm trying to clarify. I think freedom is such a blanket term that it needs some specificity. Because then we start thinking van life is all things to all people, and van life is different things to different people. And sometimes I think just the word freedom doesn't encompass that very well. Because what does that freedom mean? Freedom to do what? Like, what is this what is the freedom for? What's the goal? Is it travel? Is it monetary freedom? Like, what is the goal? What do you want to be free to do is a much more important term to me than the blanket word freedom, if that makes any sense. Oh God, this chat is like, it got really active. Thank you, Nomadic Sporadic. All right, so it's noon. I'm gonna have to knock out some of these as quick as I can. Nancy McIntyre. I will say there's always the option to bring some cleaning stuff with you, unless you don't want to deal with that. You can bring spray bottles of where's my? Well, I have these, but I also have some disinfectant spray and paper towels. So I have these wipes. Especially in parks, you never know what you're getting. But yeah, it's just something you have to deal with. Or you can only go in your van. If you have a van solution, you can just go in your van. Go in a bucket in your van, go while you're near a public restroom. That way you know what you're sitting on is clean. And then immediately walk that container, whatever it is, some nondescript container, into that public restroom. So you're still using the public restroom to get rid of your waste, but you're not having to ride around with it. So go to a place where there's a public restroom, use your personal bucket or container or bottle or whatever. You probably want to put it in a bottle or something you can stick in a bag, and then go into the public restroom and just use it to get rid of the waste. And that way you can reduce sort of your contact with a public toilet. I have as much room as I have is the answer to that one. I'm going to highlight this because I agree with Happy Camper Kits. If you can get a cargo van, there's a lot more flexibility with them in the long run. If you can't get anything but a minivan, it's not going to kill your van life as long as you're open to the experience and you're willing to be flexible to that. But if you can get a cargo van, I agree with Happy Camper Kits. It's going to give you just more space to live, especially if you're like me and you want to carry tools and a lot of stuff. Happy Camper Kits, I completely agree. I'm going to be scanning some of these comments because I'm going to have to wrap this up soon. I thank everyone for coming along. How are things going? Trying to get back to normal is the question from something better. It feels like it's normal. Except for the fact I have to wear masks when I go in stores. It's not actually been that big a deal. Garden Genie, I have a 7 gallon container, and then I have 3 additional small containers as backups. So I have one of those big green 7-gallon Reliance containers with the spigot on the end, and then I have 3 smaller containers that carry a little over a gallon. So what's that? 7, 8, it's around, I carry a little bit over 10 gallons when I'm fully stocked. Question: do you watch a lot of minivanners? I don't really. I'm gonna be honest. Darn it! Give me a second, guys. Woo! I'm gonna be honest. I don't watch as many van life videos as I used to. Mostly because I'm really interested in editing and video and photography right now. So I've been kind of obsessively watching, unless I'm really interested. I'm more interested in good editing these days than what vehicle somebody is in. So if somebody does really good editing, like, I'm more interested in their videos these days than what kind of vehicle they have, because I'm watching it more for how they edit their YouTube content than the information. Like before I was really in van life, I was watching for the information so I could figure out what I needed to do or things I could do and adapt. But now, honestly, now that I've lived in a van for a while and I sort of have a comfort level with how I live in a van, I've sort of moved on to watching people more for editing skills, photography skills, and I've been watching a lot of video and photography channels. There's a few mainstays I still watch, but honestly, it's more about their skills as video editors than it is about what vehicle they're in, because, like, I don't really feel like I'm searching for information as much, if that makes any sense, except on occasion. Oh, Kathleen Klein, I'm going to apologize. I'm just too excited about box trucks. I hope I didn't miss any super chats. I know, like, they're going back really, really, really fast. And so I'm trying to keep up with everything. I answered that question. And that's pretty much how I get my water. Thank you, Kathleen Klein. Am I saying your name right? Kathleen Klein. Bob's Adventure, who's awesome. Exactly. I feel the same way. Once I'm in my house, I'm in my house. So I feel like I'm in a private space. Sorry, I'm quiet, guys. I'm kind of scanning the chat here to see if there's anything I want to get. This is another good tip, so I'm going to go ahead and highlight it. I actually have, if I can grab it. This is one of my spare jugs. It's not my main one, but you see how thin that is. And I love it because I can actually shove this beside a seat, and it has its own spigot. So I carry a couple of these as, like, backups. I actually have 3 backups in addition to my 7-gallon. Vanlife with Gina Payne, thank you for the super chat. Kathleen, exactly. That's exactly how I live my life. Yep. It's like, honestly, if they thinking about me, how boring is their life, you know? Happy Camper Kits. I think this is important to say. This is exactly right. And the good thing is, if you start out with a simple build, you can adjust your build as you figure out how you live in your van. And I think that's great. That was one of the great things about Chrome's channel, because by the time, you know, like Happy Camper Kits and his friends begin to help him out to improve his build, he already knew so much about how he lived in a van because he started out so simply. And that's what I really still appreciate about his journey. And a lot of new people don't realize, didn't see that transition as much. So thank you, Happy Camper Kits. I like just saying that. Happy Camper Kits. Happy Camper Kits. Happy. Okay, let me stop. Garden Genie, where'd you get those narrow water jugs? I found them by accident at Rite Aid. I actually got one off of eBay as well. It was a weird little search, and I honestly searched thin water jug. So I'm lying, I got one from Rite Aid and I got two off of eBay. And I got the two off of eBay, and I was like, I really feel like I need one more. And I found the one in Rite Aid by accident. So that's where I found it. Nancy McIntyre again. I found two on eBay and one in Rite Aid. So I found them by accident. I'll look on Amazon and see if they have them. Basically, I searched thin water jugs, and I was trying to specifically find one with a spigot, and that's how I found it. Kathy, Sienna family. Yeah, Sienna family. I do get excited when I see not only just minivans, but Toyota Siennas. When I see other people like living out of my specific van, I'm like, oh, Sienna family. It's Sienna. Team Toyota. All right. Bob's Adventure. Did I see that you were willing to be a moderator? I think it rolled past really quick. Oops. I'm struggling here. Sorry, guys. All right, so it is 12:12. And okay, so I'm gonna try to remember that, but I unfortunately do need to get on the road. Like I said, I'm meeting my friend for a hike, so I need to take care of that. And it was lovely talking to all you guys and sort of like talking about vans and van life and team minivan. And I am not against minivanning. I think if you can do a minivan, it relieves so much about van life. But if you can't do it, it's okay. The cool thing about a minivan is literally you can almost park it anywhere. Even those little mini cargo vans, you can park them almost anywhere. And just because they're small, nobody will think too much about them. Just because they're small. They're like, nobody lives in that full time. So even if you have like a mini cargo van, like those, those little cargo vans like Static Camper Van has, people aren't going to pay attention to them. Like they're really just, it's not going to occur to them to think about them as like full-time homes. But it does take, you have to adjust to the fact like, you're living in a mini vehicle. But if you can wrap your head around it, there's a lot of flexibility to it. But if you can't, and you're like, I just can't deal with not standing up, or there are accessibility reasons, or even if you just have pets and you're like, I just don't think it's going to be enough room for me and my pet. Now, mind you, you have people out there in small vehicles with one to multiple pets. But if you're really like, I would feel happier with me and my pet having more space, or me and my partner having more space, there's nothing wrong with like needing a bigger van as well. And no matter what you get, somebody's going to go, I don't know how you can live in that. If you're in a minivan, it's like, how can you live in something so small? If you're in a low roof cargo van, it's like, I don't know how you can live without a high top. And then if you just generally live in a van of any size, people are going to go, I don't know how you do that full time. So yeah, you're not going to win. Like there's always going to be somebody who's going to be like, I can't comprehend how you can live that way. But I got to say bye-bye. If you enjoyed this live stream at all, please take the time to hit the like button. I am trying to make the push to 10K now that I made it to 8K. I thank all you guys for hanging around. One of the biggest ways you can help me continue to move forward is always watch videos in full if you can. I'm also guilty of being, clicking out of videos before they're done, but it does help the algorithm if you watch videos from beginning to end. Obviously, watching ads also helps. Any interaction with a video helps. So that's liking and commenting. Like, even if you just say one word comments or interactions with a video. And so liking, or honestly disliking, if you want to do that, it's still an interaction with that video and the fact that it's getting attention. Obviously subscribing and hitting the bell also helps so that you're more aware of when I am posting new content. So that would also help. And all of this stuff will make the algorithm go, oh, this girl is making content people like, so I'll get recommended to more people. But also, if you know anyone who might be interested in my content, you can also just say, hey, watch this girl very directly. If you are in Vanlife groups, you can be like, hey, have you heard of the dawn of Vanlife? And just drop a link to one of my videos. So all of those things really will help the channel. I would love to make the push to 10K. There was a time I didn't think I would have 100 subscribers, and it blows my brain that now I've hit 8,000 like 8,000 plus, because it's beyond 8,000 at this point. I thank you guys. Hopefully I'll have some exciting content coming up in the weeks to come, and you guys have a wonderful Sunday. Peace.